Hello students and welcome back to the Bootstrap coding in this video series. This is the module 7th and in this module 7th we will focus on the typography or text in Bootstrap. So what does the word typography means? Let's have a look at the definition of typography. The word typography means how do we actually make changes in our text or how do we actually write text in the Bootstrap. As an example, if I had got a paragraph tag or a heading tag, how do I use this paragraph tag and heading tag text inside the HTML document when I'm using the Bootstrap? So what we are going to do now, look at the code and understand the typography or the text concept. Just before we do that, some piece of information that I want to give you here is that by default, whenever you're using the Bootstrap, this is good to know, but as I said again, by default you can always make changes. By default, the font size which Bootstrap gives us is 16 pixels. This is the font size for your text that you write. By default, the line height that you have in Bootstrap is 1.5. By default, the type of font that you will be using, or basically the font family, is Helvetica Neue. And another important thing is, in the paragraph tag, by default the top margin, which is the top margin top attribute, it is 0, and the margin for the border bottom is 1. So some piece of information for how Bootstrap has by default font size, font family, line height, and for the paragraph tag. Obviously, if we give our own font size, our own values to these attributes, they will be picked up and used in your website. So let's get started. What we are going to now look at is a code, and in this code we'll make some modifications. We'll write some code to see how these different typography can be used. So as in the previous module also, we've discussed that whenever you write a Bootstrap code, make sure you've linked these links of the JS and the CSS correctly. We have also discussed that in the container is the one which helps you provide padding for the different controls. And what I have done is, I have actually here used the heading tag, paragraph tag, and the different values like the small, mark, the abbreviation tags, to show you how the difference of the text appears on a web page. So what we are going to do is, in the heading tag here, we will be writing a text which will be, let's say this is how a heading is displayed on the Bootstrap web page. Okay, so inside this container I've got this very first heading, which is the normal HTML heading. Let's say if you are using a heading for a class, you've got display to, and the text that you give here, you will see that this heading will appear as smaller than the normal H1. And what is the reason? The reason is this display to class which you are using. So let us add another text here for the heading. This is how a appears when the class display2 is used. We've got another heading. Now you can see I'm using a small tag inside the H1 tag, and what will it do? The secondary text that we have written will be appearing as smaller than the other text which is there in this heading using the small tag. We've got a mark tag, and what will this mark tag do? Whatever text I write down here, let's say I am inside the mark tag, whatever text we have written and saved, this will be marked as a highlight. By default, color would be coming on this particular text. We have got an abbreviation tag. For example, students, the abbreviation of WHO is Worldwide Organization, is the WHO, and what will happen? It will show us a distinct idea that WHO has been used as a abbreviation here. We have also got a pre tag basically, and if you remember in the HTML also we covered This is the tag which will basically display the fixed width font, and it will actually save the spaces and the line breaks. So whatever space you have given inside your text, before the text or after the text, that particular space also it will show when you run the code. So what we need to do, we will save this. So I've pressed Ctrl S, and what we'll do is we will locate the output file. My output file name is Bootstrap practice. So what I'm going to do, you can see the timestamp, it's already changed. So if I refresh this code, here you go. So now let us actually compare the code that we have written and the output window that we have received. So in this typography module, we discussed that we can write the code in different ways. You can see as a normal flow is, the Bootstrap code is always responsive. We have seen this is how a normal heading can be displayed. We have seen how the heading for the secondary text is shown. So if you see, this secondary text had to be small. So in this case, you can see on this heading, whatever we've written inside this small tag, this has appeared as smaller than the normal heading. We also discussed that whatever we've written in the mark tag will be marked, will be highlighted. The WHO, as I discussed, this will be shown as an abbreviation. And we also discussed that the pre tag will include all the spaces that we have. So you can see that there is a space between the preserves and both. And similarly in the output window, we can see that this particular space is actually preserved. So let's just quickly highlight this bit. Okay, so this is how we can use the small, this is how we can use the ABBR tag, this is how we can use the concept of the mark tag and different text typography in Bootstrap. So stay tuned for the next module. We will be covering another important concept in Bootstrap in the next module. Thank you and goodbye.